If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. It would really help the channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video is going over 10 tips and tricks for the Adeptus Custodes Solar Spearhead detachment. These are some of the tips and tricks I've come up with while playing this detachment over multiple games with several different lists. The tips and tricks for this video: Adamantine Talisman on the Bladechampion, Augury Uplink on the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought, bikes or no bikes, Contemptors Do Not Degrade, CP Management, Fight on Death, What About the Venerable Land Raiders, Wrathful Advance with Infantry, which is that D3+3 pile-in stratagem, Tank Movement, and Unstoppable moves through models too. Let's start with our first tip, the Adamantine Talisman enhancement on the Bladechampion. And what this enhancement does, it adds 1 attack, 1 strength, and 1 damage to melee weapons equipped by the bearer. So the Dreadnoughts are a good target, maybe the Contemptor Galatus to bring it up to 9 attacks, strength 9, damage 4, or perhaps the Telemon with the fist weapon to bring it up to 6 attacks, strength 13, damage 4. You could also equip the double fist as well to bring the total amount of attacks up. The Bladechampion though is the real winner. The enhancement is melee weapons, which means it works on all 3 weapon profiles of the Bladechampion. When we add 1 attack, strength, and damage to these profiles, we actually hit a few key breakpoints. The Victus profile has devastating wounds. Now with 6 attacks, strength 7 at damage 4 is scary good. Behemoth though will be at strength 8, damage 3, and that is a great profile for taking out infantry characters. Hurricanus is now 10 attacks, strength 6, damage 2, and that is great for those big 10-man infantry units like intercessors or other Space Marine-like profiles. Include the Marshal Qatar Army rule for sustained hits 1 or lethal hits. Next up is the Augury Uplink on the Telemon. A 5+ Feel No Pain isn't the most reliable thing in the world, but you combine it with the defensive profile of the Telemon and the flawless construction stratagem. Altogether with 1 CP, the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought can stack some buffs to be a near immortal Dreadnought. Toughness 10 with a 2-up save and a 4-up invulnerable, -1 damage for the Telemon's Eternal Guardian ability, and then -1 to the wound for 1 CP. Then on top of that, we have a 5-up Feel No Pain from this enhancement to all incoming damage. We still need to play it safe with this Dreadnought. Don't throw it up the board expecting it to tank everything. The best way I have found to use this Telemon is draw the enemy forward some, and then engage it into units that just cannot deal with it. Another way to use it is to help hold or bully objectives. Try to wait until the enemy long-range anti-tank has spread around the board some so they can't just focus fire this thing to death. We do not want to commit this Telemon to an objective or points denying mission too early in the game. Next up is bikes or no bikes. The Virtus Praetors did get some good buffs from the December 2024 data slate. They're now toughness 7 with 5 wounds each, and they have better guns now. There are some rules that do support the jet bikes in the Solar Spearhead detachment. After playing them for a few games, I think the Shield Host detachment is a better fit for the Virtus Praetors. You can of course still use them. If you're looking to make a jet bike heavy list, I feel other detachments can do it better though. The next tip is Contemptors Do Not Degrade. Let's touch on one of the best things about the 3 Contemptors we do have access to. All 3 Contemptors, the Venerable, Galatus, and Achilles, do not have a degraded profile, so no matter how many wounds they have left, they will still hit on a 2+. And this is a big deal since the Solar Spearhead detachment rule allows us to reroll hits of 1 when the Contemptors are below starting strength. The Contemptors become very reliable once they are below starting strength. Next we have CP Management. This is a very CP hungry detachment. Managing our CP throughout the game is key to using this detachment well. We need to be able to use Unstoppable to pass through terrain and or Relentless Persecution to advance in charge when it is needed. With so many good stratagems in the detachment, prioritizing the ones that we need that turn and the ones that we don't will be important. CP reroll will be used very little in this detachment. We just need the CP for other stratagems, so try to watch out where you're using CP reroll, or try not to even use it at all unless it's really going to make a difference by getting some points or denying some points. And before you spend a CP in this detachment, take a quick moment to think, do I need the CP somewhere else in my turn? plan where you want to spend your limited CP. That way we do not use our CP on a reactive or knee-jerk play. Next up is Fight on Death works on infantry. This is the stratagem that gives our dreadnoughts a 3+ Fight on Death, Emperor's Vengeance for 1 CP, and as you can see here on the right, this stratagem is 1 Adeptus Custodes unit. This means any of our infantry can use this, but it will be on a 4+. And now remember that Adamantine Talisman Bladechampion, Fight on Death with a Warden's unit with a spicy Bladechampion could be worth the 1 CP. It is on a 4+, so it is a 50-50 chance, and it also has to be used when the unit is targeted. You have to judge, are you going to lose the model, are you going to lose the unit? So you do have to watch out with this one. This could be a waste of CP if nothing ends up dying. Let's talk about our Venerable Land Raider. The Venerable Land Raider can be a long-range anti-tank platform like the Custodes Grav Tank, plus we can fill it full of 6 Adeptus Custodes, possibly that Bladechampion and Warden's unit. It does have 4 las cannons hitting on 2+. The stratagem that could make these into a nightmare to get rid of is Flawless Construction, and that is the stratagem when you're hit by anything that's higher than your and that is the stratagem where any incoming attack that is higher than our toughness is -1 to the wound roll. So there's anything higher than toughness 12 will be -1 to the wound roll. A Land Raider on an objective in no man's land could be a real pain to remove if we are using this stratagem. The Land Raider is not as reliable and deadly as the Custodes Grav Tank, but the higher toughness and higher wounds makes this the next best thing. Then we have Wrathful Advance with Infantry, or our D3+3 pile-in, and this stratagem is not one we'll be using a lot throughout the game. It does, however, give us a way to get a few extra pile-in inches when we really need to tag an objective or another enemy unit. The opponent has a unit within 4 inches of their Fights First unit. Charge that unit without the Fights First and use this stratagem to help slingshot some models into that Fights First unit. You just have to set it up so that Fights First unit is now the closest enemy unit to some of your models, and then you can pile into them. And since we activate then pile in, the Fights First unit will not get to activate before we get to swing. A very sneaky stratagem on that Bladechampion and Warden's unit. Second to last, we have Tanks Go Through Walls 2. This is part of the psychological warfare of this detachment. Unstoppable is vehicle or mounted. That means we can send a Custodes Grav Tank or a Venerable Land Raider through some ruins or terrain. This may seem simple, but I find we always talk about how the dreads can go through terrain, but not the actual tanks or the Land Raiders. For the Custodes, this gives us even more ways to get line of sight on the enemy, and more threat potential the opponent has to measure for and worry about. The Land Raider, we can move through a ruin, drop out our infantry cargo, shoot with that Land Raider, and then charge with that Adeptus Custodes unit that was inside the Land Raider. And remember, tanks can go through walls. And for our last and final tip, we have Unstoppable Goes Through Models. I feel this part of the stratagem is overlooked. Move horizontally through models. What makes this interesting is that it does not specify which models. For 1 CP, we can pass through those movement screens to get some good charges off, but remember, we do need to be able to end the move not within engagement range of enemy models or halfway through a wall. Those were my 10 tips and tricks for the Solar Spearhead detachment. Let's move on to some final thoughts. I hope this first tips and tricks video for an actual detachment has given you some things to think about for the Solar Spearhead detachment. These tips should help my fellow Adeptus Custodes players pilot this detachment more confidently. I may do a tips and tricks for each detachment. I'm also working on the first episode of the How to Beat series, starting with how to beat the Necrons with the Custodes. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40k content. And like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.